Why don't you come up? Oh, hi, Debbie. Oh, okay. I was like, I'm trying to figure out who Farrah is. But it's nice to meet you.
Farrah. Okay. That's Farrah.
Hi, Farrah. Good to see you. Thanks for spreading the word far and wide. Right across the Pacific.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Tell me when we're ready, guys.
Okay, I'll tell you in a minute.
Nobody follows one shot.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
I will get my call if we are moving things. Let's see. There's that. That would be better. All right. Thank you, guys. Hi.
Are you using that microphone?
Am I using this microphone? Test that. Second. Is that good enough? Or just project? Okay. Good morning. I am Dr. Amy Gordon Bono. I am a primary care physician who's been practicing in Tennessee for 11 years, and I'm a native Tennessean. And today we take a huge step back for healthcare in Tennessee. At this moment, the Human Life Protection Act is in effect. And don't be fooled by this law's name. The makers of this legislation fail to realize how inhumane this law really is. And our speakers today will share their stories and concerns to convince you of how extreme and uncompassionate these rules really are. This trigger law criminalizes abortion. No exceptions. No exceptions for rape, no exceptions for incest, no exceptions for deadly fetal abnormalities, and no exceptions for the life or health of the mother. Now, the abortion provider can mount an affirmative defense for acting to save the mother's life, but the scales of justice are tipped in favor of the state with an affirmative defense instead of an exception to the law. So let's be clear. These hardworking, empathetic doctors standing here could be considered criminals for doing their jobs and saving your life. These doctors must shoulder the burden of proof against the state, and these care providers must prove they are innocent because of careless politicians. These doctors could be criminals for helping their patients not only live, but live their best chosen life. On the steps of this criminal court, we stand up for our rights to comprehensive reproductive health care, and we stand up for the rights as medical professionals to provide that health care without interference from politicians. We thank you for joining us today, and the next time you see us here, we could be in handcuffs defending our patient care practices. So, here today to share their perspectives are physicians from specialties of obstetrics and gynecology, internal medicine, and emergency medicine. And starting off our conversation today will be Dr. Laura Andresen. Dr. Andresen, please come forward and introduce yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Dr. Gordon Bono. My name is Laura Andresen. I am an obstetrician and gynecologist in Franklin, Tennessee. And I'm here to tell you that the Human Life Protection Act is a barrier to women trying to access comprehensive health care. The shared decision-making that occurs between a woman and a physician belongs in the exam room and not in the legislature. Only until you've sat in the silence that occurs after delivering a terrible diagnosis to a parent or informing a woman hemorrhaging that the only way to save her life is to end her pregnancy, do you have a right to weigh in on this subject. As a physician, I am primarily a patient advisor and advocate, but this law divides me from my patient and creates unnecessary conflict in our relationship. This law makes me walk a line between providing evidence-based medicine and being forced to delay care until a patient's medical condition deteriorates to the point of becoming life-threatening. There is no definition in the practice of medicine of life-threatening. There's not a lab value, there's no vital sign, there's no one algorithm. A decision on how to treat a critically ill patient is a skill I've developed over 20 years of practice. As a result of this trigger ban, women will be injured, may lose their reproductive ability, and may die due to the criminalization of those providing their care. Every day since I learned of the implications of the trigger ban, I worry about becoming a felon. As today, August 25th, has been rapidly approaching, I've encountered multiple situations in my clinic that will absolutely be considered abortions subject to criminal penalties. Today is the day that the routine care I provide carries a risk of being charged with a felony. To illustrate this fact, I have two patient examples. A young woman I've cared for has presented to me with prolonged bleeding between the weeks of 10 and 15 of pregnancy. I saw her in my office frequently. We did serial labs, serial ultrasounds, and we really thought that the situation had stabilized. However, in the 15th week, her bleeding significantly increased, and she presented to the emergency department. She was found to have profuse bleeding, the fetus was starting to deliver, and a placental abruption was occurring. Placental abruption is when the placenta separates from the uterus. It leaves thousands of blood vessels open and they bleed continuously until the uterus is emptied. It typically results in a need for blood products, surgical expertise, and rapid treatments. If that does not occur, the patient will eventually lose her ability to clot her blood and she will die. In this example, there was a fetal heartbeat. Unfortunately, care providers may question their management and delay their actions due to fear of criminal charges. As physicians fear felonies, the outcomes could include mothers dying. Another woman presented with premature rupture of membranes at 18 weeks. Her water broke well before the baby could survive outside the womb. As an experienced physician, I know that if I delay termination, there are significant risks to the mother, including bleeding, severe infection, multi-system organ failure, and death. Ultimately, this woman could need a hysterectomy. If I do not act promptly to terminate the pre-viable pregnancy, this mother could lose her ability to have future children. Discussing this complex medical condition with the patient is difficult. It's heartbreaking to know that she must decide if she wants to end the pregnancy to prevent adverse outcomes for her and her baby. In this case, and in many other clinical situations, the risks of remaining pregnant outweigh the benefits. For this woman, the best medical decision is an abortion. And sadly, termination of the pregnancy will put me at risk of being charged with a felony. I know that abortion is a hard decision, but in many situations it is the medically appropriate choice. How sick does a woman need to be to provide enough evidence for me to mount my affirmative defense? There's also the fact that I'm not the only person helping to care for this woman. Other healthcare professionals, such as nurses and the anesthesia team, may refuse to participate in her care as they are viewed as an accomplice, much like the drivers of the getaway car. The patient assumes the risk of injury and death because we do not have any exceptions to this law. There's twisted irony in naming this law the Human Life Protection Act. Whose life is protected and at what expense? To everyone listening, this law is dangerous to the women of Tennessee. Whatever your opinion is on abortion, please realize that these government mandates pose a significant threat to our health, and many are downplaying this risk. There's a lot of misinformation and confusion regarding exceptions written into this law. Let me be clear once again, exceptions to this law do not exist. By speaking out against the law, I hope that we can reach an understanding that abortion is health care, and the women of this state deserve better. Thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Laura Andreessen. I think that her comments really demonstrate how physicians are in between a rock and a hard place, trying to balance criminal liability with medical malpractice. So when we have doctors that are that conflicted in trying to provide care, our patients are going to suffer even more. A topic that Dr. Andreessen did not touch on is ectopic pregnancy. There is a lot of confusion in the law about how to handle ectopic pregnancy and the definitions of criminality with ectopic pregnancy. When the law is not clear, it is dangerous. And another physician will step forward soon, Dr. Richard Borland. He is going to share his family's experience with deadly fetal abnormalities and his family's journey to find health care.
Thank you, Dr. Bono, and thank you all for being here today. I am Dr. Rich Orland, a physician who is Ivy League educated, board certified in internal medicine, and certified for continuing medical education. I have practiced medicine for more than 40 years, and I am licensed in 11 states. In 1997, after multiple attempts with assisted fertility, my wife learned that she was pregnant. In March 1998, we learned that the fetus had 4 very serious cardiac abnormalities. After consulting with multiple physicians here in Nashville and across the country, we were advised to terminate the pregnancy, as life outside the womb would not be possible without a heart transplant upon birth. After further discussions with our clergy and family members, we made the decision to terminate the pregnancy. We donated the fetus to Vanderbilt Medical Center for medical research. The decision to terminate the pregnancy was made between my wife, her clergy, and her physicians. Never once did we consult a politician. These events occurred 24 years ago. Had these events occurred today, because of the law enacted today, my wife would have died, because she would have been forced and mandated to continue her pregnancy. So we need to prepare ourselves for women to die because of this law. As I mentioned, I am a physician licensed to practice medicine in 11 states.
Lost your mind?
WSMD lost their mind. Thank you for being here, WSMD.
Could I ask you what you're doing? Sweet. Can I talk?
I'm a physician
Why?
licensed
You're only letting
to
one side
practice
talk?
medicine in 11 states. I say that Governor Lee and all members of the Tennessee General Assembly who voted for this law should be charged with practicing medicine without a license and medical malpractice, and should be held responsible to the full extent of the law.
Threatening her, and I will go get the police officers.
I haven't done a single thing.
Thank you, Dr. Woodland. I I think that the law that exists in Tennessee right now is insensitive to your family's needs and is uncompassionate. And it's sad that we have voices among us that don't want to hear with compassion the stories that our families here in Tennessee are suffering with. We're going to continue our conversation with an emergency medicine physician, Dr. Mary Jane Brown, to come forward and tell us some stories.
Good morning, and thank you, Dr. Bono, Dr. Andreessen, and Dr. Orland, and all of you, even those who may have different opinions to this morning. I'm Dr. Mary Jane Brown. I'm an emergency physician in over 35 years of practice here in this community. I have a number of colleagues, and I see some nursing professionals here, and I am very deeply appreciative. This morning I am honored and humbled to read the words of a fellow emergency physician who is unable to be here, but is deeply passionate and concerned about the quality of care that she will now be able to offer. Dr. Katrina Green, peace out, and thank you for this privilege. Let us listen to her words. As an emergency physician, I treat everyone who comes into my emergency department, including women who have been sexually assaulted and abused by their partners.
0.02%.
I have comforted countless women who have come to the emergency department for bleeding while pregnant, crying with them when I've had to tell them that they were miscarrying a wanted pregnancy.
Literally never happened.
I've also
All the
counseled
time,
many
myself
women
included.
who were unaware that they were pregnant. Now I worry those same women will stay away from the emergency department and delay treatment that they need because of the fear. Today is the day that abortion has become fully and totally illegal in our state. No exceptions. No exceptions for rape victims. No exceptions for children impregnated by abusers. No exceptions for fatal fetal anomalies. No exceptions for mothers whose lives are at risk from breast cancer, melanoma, other dangerous cancers that need aggressive and early treatment. They are forced into a pro-birth position. What the state of Tennessee is saying, loud and clear, is that potential life is more valued than the already living, breathing, feeling, generous and kind spirit that we see in our midst. This is a slap in the face to all women, especially those who have suffered through miscarriages, and those women who have survived grueling pregnancies and the risky delivery in order to extend their families. Now, the choice to have a family is not a choice. The politicians who control our state have spoken, and we hear their messages loud and clear that women's lives don't matter. They don't care that women will die and their families will be left to pick up the pieces. Spouses will be widowed and children will be orphaned. My colleagues are here today because they know, like I do, that healthcare is an art and as much as it is a science. Much of medicine lives in a gray area where art and faith and spirituality exist. Because of that gray area, doctors and their patients should be left to make the decision about healthcare without government interference. Doctors take a sacred oath to first do no harm, and this oath is to the living, breathing patient in front of us. As an emergency physician, I was taught that the mother's life takes priority during any life-threatening situation.
How about the other 99%?
Today, I must choose between my medical training and obeying the law,
That's imprecise math.
between malpractice and criminalization. Many other doctors in the emergency departments, in the clinics, and in labor and delivery wards are now facing those same terrible choices. We have a long and uphill road to climb in order to fix this law. And as a physician, I am not perfect, and I certainly share that grace with politicians who are not perfect. We need to fix this and win back the right to patient-centered, evidence-based care. Reproductive health care. I am grateful for the solidarity of my brothers and sisters and this community in medicine for the support that you bring this morning. Together, we can all work to make Tennessee a safe and healthy place for everyone, no matter skin color, no matter religious faith, beliefs, no matter what your bank balance or zip code are. The fight is not over. It is just beginning. Let us choose life, as it says in Deuteronomy 30:19. Choose life. Amen. And thank you, Dr. Green.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. To my fellow Tennesseans, please understand that our leaders continue to make our state an unhealthy place to live. We don't agree on everything when it comes to abortion, but I think if there's something that we can agree on, it's that we need to have compassion in our hearts for anyone who has dealt a very difficult situation. And women need to be given the opportunity to make an informed decision about their bodies. And doctors should not be criminals for saving a pregnant woman's life and helping that woman in her time of need. Our legislation in Tennessee is inhumane and insensitive to the complexities that patients and physicians encounter every day. Compassionate healthcare exists in a lot of gray areas. And now Governor Bill Lee and the General Assembly have made your doctors criminal for providing compassionate, ethical, standard healthcare. Make no mistake, pregnancy termination is a hard choice. But in many situations, it is the best choice. And it should be a woman's decision, not a government mandate. To decide for her. This law was passed in 2019 after Bill Lee became our governor and the General Assembly more firmly cemented its supermajority in the prior election cycle. To my fellow Tennesseans, I urge you to take a look at the vast number of sponsors that signed on to that bill and that was signed into law by Governor Bill Lee. Most recently at a Government Operations Committee meeting, Senator Rusty Crowe of Johnson City said, "So there will be some fine tuning as we normally do, with different bills. But I think that we all know what the intent Tennessee has with that bill." End quote. Really. This audience is full of Tennesseans who are quite unclear on the intent of this bill. This legislation will have long-lasting effects on the practice of medicine in our state. There will be unintended consequences. These laws create burdensome divides between physician and patient and harm that sacred relationship. As the U.S. Supreme Court has abandoned stare decisis, the state of Tennessee is now mandating that physicians abandon their patients in their time of need as a result of this law. And it does seem rather peculiar that in a state that touts tort reform, that physicians are now deemed criminal in some situations in Tennessee. In Tennessee, it will be difficult to recruit to certain specialty programs for doctors in training And some physicians will avoid practicing in Tennessee due to its harsh legal environment that has yet to be tested with case law. We should all be worried about the future of in vitro fertilization. So many families will suffer from not having access to this amazing way to grow your family. So when Governor Bill Lee and the General Assembly choose to come after some of us, like those families trying to access health care and the physicians just trying to help them along the way, they attack all of us. And these extreme legislators continue to make Tennessee a less healthy place to live and work freely. So politicians, what do you see when you look at this new legal landscape? Because all we see are excessive phone calls to lawyers, burdensome paperwork, handcuffs, Class C felonies on our records, and patients paying a higher price than that as their care is delayed and compromised. And Governor Lee, this buck stops with you. This was viewed as a landmark victory for your first year in office.
That's right.
And let me be clear, this legislation will harm and kill Tennesseans. And once again, sir, you will have blood on your hands.
Yes. Right. Shut up.
I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And we have a moment for some questions from reporters. If anyone would like to start off, I'll call on you as we go. Hi. Hi.
Thanks for taking us through the perspective of doctors. Can you give us a sense of, can somebody give us a bit more of a sense of, I guess, what the perspective of patients has been? What are they telling you? How scared are they? Are they confused about these trigger bans? And if so, what's the message that you have for them?
Right. So, Farah from from Australia. Yeah. Woohoo! International news once again, Tennessee. Woohoo! She's asking for someone to speak to the patient experience and patient concerns. Would you like to do so, Dr. Andreessen?
Yes.
Okay.
Interestingly, I had this question come up yesterday. A woman is considering having a child, and she is very fearful that if she presents with a complication of pregnancy, that I would question whether or not to provide care to her. In any case, I will care for the patient. It is my responsibility, it's my oath. There's no way I'm going to watch a woman die. But it presents me to a felony, which will effectively end my career and end my ability to care for the patients. So they're scared. They're fearful that we aren't going to care for them. They're fearful that more strict laws will be passed. And I think we need to support them during this time.
You spoke about sort of obviously the uphill battle from here.
Yes.
Where to next? What are the next steps for Tennessee? I mean, is it a matter of basically, voting with your feet, codifying this international law? Where to
At this moment, I am a little bit hopeful that whenever the General Assembly session starts in January 2023, that there will be open hearts and open minds to maybe open up for some change. But at this moment, there's a lot of uncertainty in the legal landscape here in Tennessee. Of course, when it comes to other states, the U.S. Supreme Court has given power back to the states to regulate this. So at this juncture, it seems as though the regulatory body is our state level government. So, which is likely inactive until January. Hi.
Hi. You guys say there's no exceptions in the law. Governor Lee keeps saying there is. Media is also saying there is. Can you clarify for us where the discrepancy is there?
Even if you go to the Tennessee General Assembly's website, there is it says exception. The word listed on the website is exception. If you go to the bill itself, it's only 2 pages. You can read it. So structurally, the way the bill is written, you go to section 2. Let me start with telling you that the the chapter in which this Tennessee Human Life Protection Act exists, the chapter in the Tennessee Code is, quote, offenses against the family. Okay? So, in the chapter, offenses against the family, there is the Human Life Protection Act, which is TCA 39-15-213. And in section 2, there are definitions, but if you go to section 2B, it says a person who performs or attempts to perform an abortion commits the offense of criminal abortion, period. Criminal abortion is a Class C felony. If there was a desire for the legislature to put an exception in the law, it would appear in that section 2B. However, instead of providing exceptions to the law, there is structurally an affirmative defense. So, and there's parts of the affirmative defense that do invoke the health and life of the mother. But notably, the health and life of the mother does not include her mental health. So as we are trying to navigate the absolutism of criminalization, there is significant ambiguity as to what an affirmative defense actually represents. So that's my understanding, as I have heard at least 2 criminal defense attorneys present this information. And that's as much as I can tell you as a physician who is licensed to practice in Tennessee.
And just a quick follow-up, would that impact your decision to take care of a patient? Would that work its way into your decision-making process?
I think that this just underscores the extreme ambiguity that we are living with nowadays. And as Dr. Andreessen affirmed, our duty is to take care of patients, and we will do that.
Can I ask a question now?
So, hi, WPLN, please.
Yes. Is there any hope after what we saw with New Hampshire challenging Idaho's law, which is very similar to ours with the affirmative defense for the less than 20%?
You know, that news flashed in my brain yesterday, and I really don't know. You know, when it comes to, I think what this underscores is that there's just a lot of different battles that are going to have to be fought in each state. And it certainly would be nice if we could have a more unifying experience among our 50 states.
Would you want the Department of Justice to challenge Tennessee's law?
I will welcome any challenge to this law because it will make my life a lot easier. So, any other questions from WPLN? Any other questions from any other news sources?
Hand over here. Independent journalist right here.
I will need to ask if there's any more questions from other news sources.
The other 99% of abortions, please. You seem to just get caught up.
Okay, we're not interested. I don't think you have a press pass, dude, right?
Yeah, I'm not aware of your press
Sorry.
pass.
You have a press pass, please show it to me. Okay, we're not talking to you. You don't have a press pass, dude.
As we've mentioned, not everyone agrees on everything when it comes to abortion, but we do need to have compassion in our hearts. And when it comes to
do you think doctors should let women die?
these
Can you
laws,
stop
they are
backing your ass into me,
Doctors should
please?
let women die, Paul?
You know that literally never happens.
Do you
It's
think
less than
doctors should let women
1%.
die?
Can we talk about the other? Can we talk about the other
So if
99%?
there are no more
Question. Do you think
questions,
doctors should
we'll
let
Let's
women
talk.
die?
Let's first
Can you
say.
answer that
Let's
basic
first say.
question?
Let's first say
Should doctors
99%.
let women die?
Let's first say
Yes or no?
99%.
Should doctors
99%.
let women
No,
die?
you're not answering
It's a
the
simple
question.
question.
You're not answering the
You
question.
can't answer a
It literally
question.
never
Why do you
happens.
expect
It
them
never
to answer a
happens.
question?
It never
Should
happens.
doctors let women die? Yes
It
or
never
no?
happens. In what
yes
cases?
or no?
In what cases?
Yeah, that's the question that they have to answer. These are real doctors.
If the
You're
mother's
just a
life
troll.
at risk.
These are real doctors.
If the mother's
Should
life
they
is at
have
risk.
to let women die?
If the mother's life is
Yes or no?
at risk, no.
Great.
Now let's
That's
talk.
what they're talking
Now let's
about.
talk about the other
He agrees
99%.
with that.
No, I
Great.
don't.
Paul
Let's talk about the other 99%. You're not
Paul
going to talk.
agrees, everybody.
You're not going to
He
talk.
agrees with the doctors. He says they shouldn't have to let
You
women
guys
die.
refuse to talk about
Everybody's
the
on the same
99%.
page.
You
Thank
refuse to
Paul.
talk about the 99%.
Paige, I can answer your question.
Yes, 37 years.